Okay, welcome back to topic 10, inside the mothership. So a tour of Toyota Material Handling. So let me give you a little background. Toyota Material Handling is one of the premier factories in North America. They build fork trucks. They were voted Assembly Factory of the Year a few years ago by Assembly Magazine. Pretty good example, and we know that Toyota has a good reputation for being lean. So what I wanted to do was share with you what you might see based on the topics that we've discussed in this series, the 9 topics. Maybe you won't see everything that we talked about, but quite a bit. And the reason this might be of interest to you is that we have a workshop coming up on November 6th through the 8th at this site. So they've been kind enough, as they have in the past, to host us at this factory and open up one of their training rooms for us and actually conduct tours as part of the class. So this is the name of this workshop is Mixed Model Material Management. So we'll be covering a lot of the topics that we talked about in this series in much greater depth, but you'll also have a chance to see these methods in action and ask questions and talk to other participants, and really it's quite an amazing experience. I could even maybe claim that it's for some of you a life-changing experience, or at least an experience that you'll remember for the rest of your career. So let's go through what you're going to see should you be able to join us in Columbus, Indiana, November 6th through the 8th. So the first thing we talked about was a 2-bin Kanban system, and I think we made the point this is not something that they really are familiar with, a 2-bin. Why 2-bin? But what you're going to see at Toyota is an extremely mature Kanban system. I mean, they actually created it, right? I mean, they're known as being kind of the originators of this concept. And so you're going to see something that's actually very, very simple in some ways, but very sophisticated. I'll give you an example. They track every Kanban card. They use paper cards, believe it or not. So they're not scanning bins, they're using paper cards, but they actually track bins. They have a system in place to automatically calculate usage in the future based on their MRP system and make adjustments to the number of cards. And they have a way of tracking if a card should get lost or misplaced, a flag gets raised. So they have some really interesting homegrown tools that they use to keep the system going, as well as some internal disciplines so that operators know what their role is, the team leaders and supervisors know what their role is. If the cards are not collected on every cycle, a light goes on. So you'll see all of this stuff in action. And the result is they're able to maintain this Kanban system for probably half of the items that they consume on the line being delivered through this Kanban system. So very interesting thing to see. Pulling from overseas, that was the second topic. So this is a premier example of exactly that. So the biggest fork truck factory in the world, apparently, is in Japan. It's their sister plant in Japan. So they're receiving some components. Most of the content is domestic, US, but they are receiving some items from Japan. And in order to not drive up inventories, they have this pipeline that they've set up of shipping containers with mixed items. So Japan gets actual orders or a forecast about 40 days or more ahead of time, and then they create these sets of parts that are in a continuous flow, like a chain of beads, right, on a string of shipping containers coming from Japan. And of course, they arrive. They finally make it to Columbus. They need to get unpacked, put away, etc. You can see that and discuss that in detail. Really a premier example of that. Okay, topic 3, material handling as waste. So as far as I know, don't quote me on this, but material handlers are not indirect people. So the whole material handling organization within Toyota are regarded as equally valuable participants in the effort of building a high quality fork truck. And so they're direct, and this idea of direct and indirect or second-class citizens doesn't really exist. But that's something you can discuss as well when you're there and see that in action. Now, how much inventory? Again, we mentioned this in the topic. This was topic 4, but the guideline there, or the goal, say philosophy, is a few hours of usage at the workstations. And the way they make this happen is the delivery system that they've set up to have that very low level of inventory on the factory floor and not run the risk of running out of things. So again, you'll see that with your own eyes on 2 factory tours. Topic 5, frequent delivery cycles. So this was kind of a mind blower for me when I first started visiting Toyota material handling about 6 years ago, was how often these carts came by, the tuggers. It's in the in the range of a little bit more than 30 minutes. So to my eyes, where I was used to thinking at that time of material handling as being kind of a waste, that seemed like a whole lot of activity. And it took me a while it took a while for me to understand and for the light bulb to go on that this has really made some sense and that there was some careful thinking behind that strategy. Again, you'll see that in action. In fact, you can't take a tour without seeing the tuggers going by and replenishing this material system because it's continual throughout the day, 12 times to be precise. Topic number 6 was simulation modeling. I don't think you're going to see any of that. In fact, I'm not quite sure if they're using it, but the fact is that they have processes that are very mature. So there are fewer unknowns, I would say, when they rebalance a line, for example, or they rebalance the material delivery system. There are a lot fewer unknowns than for most of us because they have such a mature process in place that they follow. So their need to actually model things to uncover and test the new design is probably less than it would be. I'm not saying it's zero, but less than it would be for us. Us normal, sentient beings. Topic 7 was JIT kitting. I didn't see, this might be a question. They are doing kitting. They have a variety of ways of getting the material to these points of use. If it's not in a Kanban, they deliver one at a time. They deliver in small sets. So this idea of JIT kitting is very likely part of their strategy. In other words, small sets of parts that get delivered. But where I saw this more in action was at Toyota in Georgetown, Kentucky, where they build the Camrys and a few other models, where just about every sub-assembly, dashboards, engines, etc., just about every sub-assembly that I saw with my eyes was using this JIT kitting kind of method to pull material off of the assembly lines themselves and put it into a concentrated cell and then feed those sets or kits to the assembly cells one at a time, right? One unit at a time. And it seemed to be working beautifully. And as I mentioned in the previous topic, when we talked about this, the overall benefit was about a 5% productivity gain, quality got better, and the floor space was reduced. They could actually shrink those assembly areas, which is what motivated their effort in the first place. So they didn't have to continue to expand the footprint of the factory. Topic 8 was inventory benefits. Again, I think this is a review. It would be interesting to have a discussion with them about where they are today, but calculating inventory benefits and inventory turnover metrics is something that we treated as a review here, since there seems to be a need periodically to kind of refresh our memory on how to do this. And the last one is conveyance. So it may seem somewhat ironic that a fork truck factory doesn't use fork trucks that much on the factory floor, but that's simply the case. So there are plenty of fork trucks there in use. I don't mean just the ones they're building and selling, in use, but it tends to be restricted to the outside of the factory. They have a separate building, so movement between buildings. They're certainly used there, unloading these shipping containers, unloading and loading trucks. So plenty of uses for them. But as I said in the topic 9, they tend to be on the outside and not on the factory floor. So by and large, tuggers are the modus operandi. I'll mention too about tuggers, it's not only carrying bins on carts, but they actually have customized carts to carry these sets of parts. So they're using tuggers not just to move Kanban bins, but to move sets of parts in more sequence delivery kind of a methodology with customized carts. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there. If you can join us in Columbus, you'll love it. You'll have a great time. Not only learning all the things that we talked about, very interesting stuff in a lot more detail, but getting out on the factory floor and spending time with the Toyota folks, not just on the tours, but during lunchtime. We'll have some Q&A sessions. So a great 3 days if you can join us. So the information is below on this page to find out more. Look at the whole itinerary, the whole agenda for that 3-day visit, and hope to see you there. Okay, bye now.